Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Maryland Department of Transportation Commuter Choice Maryland webinar on office relocation. In this webinar, we're going to help you learn how to plan for your office move and help your employees manage that transition with their commute, helping them find transportation options and providing guidance on incentives, the Maryland commuter tax credit, and ways that you can actually decrease parking demand at your new location. So in this agenda, we'll be addressing all of those things. First, we're going to give you a little bit of background about what Commuter Choice Maryland is and how we can continue to serve you. And we're also going to talk about how to determine your commuter's needs, assess your new location, look at commuter benefit options, and execute plan recommendations related to your relocation. So what is Commuter Choice Maryland? Commuter Choice Maryland is the travel demand management program for the Maryland Department of Transportation. Our work includes trying to increase the use of public transportation, ride-sharing, walking, biking, teleworking, and the use of alternative work schedules to enhance the quality of life for Maryland residents. By doing this, we enable the Maryland Department of Transportation to address key goals, objectives, and strategies to maximize traveler choice and deliver transportation solutions and services that help us to reduce congestion across the state and conserve our environment and facilitate greater economic opportunity. My name is Shana Johnson, and I'm with Commuter Choice Maryland. And also joining me on the line today is Gladys Hurwitz with Commuter Choice Maryland, and she'll be chiming in later as we go through your questions and answers. If you have any questions throughout this webinar, please put them into the question box. And at the very end, we will go ahead and hopefully answer some, if not all, of those questions. So a little bit more about Commuter Choice Maryland and the specific services that we provide. We work with employers providing ongoing support to help them manage their employees' commuting needs, issues, and challenges. We conducted webinars on a wide range of transportation topics pertinent to all types of employers across the entire state of Maryland, including this one. We also can provide you and help you access the Maryland commuter tax credit and assess your commuter benefit options and ways that implementing commuter benefits can be beneficial for your business from a tax standpoint. And we have a number of marketing materials and information on commuting options that we can provide you with to distribute to your employees and assist them. With individual commuters, we have a number of online and printed resources on various transportation options across the state. We also promote the use of something called Guaranteed Ride Home, where it is available in parts of the state. That is a program that allows individuals who normally commute to work by means other than driving alone to receive basically an emergency ride home in the event that they need to leave work at a time that they don't usually leave when their transportation option may not be available. So if you have a sick child or need to work late, you can no longer take transit, or you miss your carpool or vanpool, you can use Guaranteed Ride Home. So we help commuters access that option. We also can provide a range of information to commuters to increase their knowledge and comfort level with using a wide range of transportation options available across the state. And this next slide is a visualization of all of the things that we promote and their benefits. Particularly, we put a large focus on helping employers across the state claim the Maryland commuter tax credit, which we'll talk a little bit more in detail about at the end of this webinar. We know that by helping employers and their employees find better ways to get to work, that we are increasing job satisfaction, helping you with issues of recruitment and retention, and increasing productivity, making our businesses all the more competitive, and Maryland a more likely location for businesses to locate. And we also know that offering commuter benefits to employees can help you achieve any corporate social responsibilities goals by decreasing the environmental impact of commuting, and also help us meet those, again, the statewide goals of reducing congestion. So throughout this webinar, we're going to be conducting some polls to facilitate your participation. And these polls are accessible through a website called menti.com. It's menti.com. If you would like to participate in these polls, if you could go to that website now and use this code 334955, which is on the screen, you'll be able to participate throughout the webinar. And that a lot of our polls will help us get to know you and your needs a little bit better, and so hopefully we can address the folks who are on the line and your specific questions and needs as we go along. Okay. So our first poll question is, we want to know what your organization's relocation timeline is. Obviously, if you're not actively planning a location, that might be other. Here's our Mentimeter. And actually, it looks like the code given on this one is 288869. So one person on the line so far. 2 people has responded. And we've got a lot more than 2 people on the line, so we'll give you another minute or 2 to hopefully log on to Menti with us. Okay, I'm going to wait like another minute or 2 as we get closer to the number of folks who are on the line, hopefully participating, and we'll move on. Looks like, however, most of you are now a little bit further out from actually relocating, so that's probably good for the purposes of this webinar. You'll be able to take everything that we talk about today and move forward with that and apply it as you move toward relocating. Okay. So the first step in looking at your relocation and your current needs of your current employees is going to be determining what they're doing today and looking at how that might change in your new location. And so the first part of this, and something that we help all of our employers do, whether they're looking at relocation or simply trying to make commuting easier for their workforce, is we survey employees to help understand how they're traveling today. With that data, you can use it to really understand how they currently commute, what their barriers to maybe using options other than driving alone are, what kinds of incentives might help them change their behavior, and really what kind of strategies you might want to employ, what's going to be actually feasible for your workforce. And we recognize that that may not always be something like taking transit, which is why we have this wide variety of strategies, including things like telework and alternative work schedules to help folks manage their commutes. Once you have all of this information, you can create the best commuter benefit plan that's really tailored to your workforce. And we have a sample survey that's available on commuterchoicemaryland.com, and then we can also help you deploy throughout your workforce. So when you're thinking about using this information to transition to your new location, you can look at how are folks getting to work today, and then take that, looking at their current locations and incorporating, including in the survey that I just discussed, some questions about how they might plan to commute to the new location, what their level of preparedness is to make that. You can look at that in relationship to access at the new location, as in whether transit is accessible, whether there's any quote-unquote last mile issues, is what we call it in the transportation industry, which means that maybe there's a rail station or a bus transfer center relatively close by to your new location, but it's just far enough that you can't actually walk or bike, or the right infrastructure to walk or bike from that. Access to transit isn't available. So you can look at the new location in the context of how do folks get to work today, how are they likely to work, what their concerns might be, and then what are the potential barriers at the new site that we can address for helping them to transition easily, and looking at the types of strategies and commute options that will help them. And so the next slide, and for those of you who are a little bit further out, you may you may or may not have a sense of this yet, but I would say do your best to participate with us on this poll. Give it your best guess if you don't have a very clear sense of this yet. But what do you think is the biggest concern for your employees' new commute? Already got a couple of answers. Great. Okay. Got 4 folks chimed in so far. Let's see if I can get a few more. Okay. Looks like there's a really broad range of responses here. But of course, one of the biggest ones, is not surprising, is just knowing what options are available at the new work site, and maybe the difficulty of accessing the new work site versus the current work site. Great. So the very next step in this process is actually doing an assessment of your new location so that you understand what all of the options are there, and can help employees manage their commute transition with that knowledge in mind. And so if you're actively looking at office space, you're probably already doing this, but when you're conducting site visits to either your selected or potential new office locations, one thing to make note of is exactly what is available, whether there's local bus, commuter bus, Metro Subrail Light Rail, commuter rail, Metro Rail, what van pool and carpool options, is there preferential parking for those options? Are there park and rides nearby? What about bike and scooter infrastructure, availability of car share? Some private offices do have car share vehicles available in the parking garages, for example, whether there's a private employer shuttle going on, and that may be a strategy that you want to look at employing. But if you're going, for example, in an office park, sometimes there may already be employers chipping into a shared employer shuttle from a nearby rail station or other location, park and ride. So understanding what among those things are available at the site is a key component to a site visit. You'll also want to look at biking and walking infrastructure that's available. And so you're probably already thinking about some of that on-street bicycle infrastructure, which could include bike lanes, but we know that actually more protected bicycle infrastructure, what we call cycle tracks, which are those protected bike lanes, and off-street trails, are really the best type of bicycle infrastructure for facilitating biking for transportation. There's also low-stress streets and shared lanes, and as well as potential infrastructure such as bike share. What if you are, for example, in Howard County or in parts of the Washington, D.C. region, there may be a bike share provider available to you. And also looking, of course, at bike racks and bike storage. Are they indoor, outdoor? How accessible they are? Are they protected? Is there even like a bike locker? Is there bike storage that's going to allow someone to bring a cargo bike, for example, if they're biking from further away? And again, looking at those first mile, last mile connections. Is there a sidewalk? Is that sidewalk actually pleasant to walk on? And what is it connected to? If you're, depending on the type of business you are in, you may be in a location where sidewalk connectivity is available typically unavailable, but really looking at those local conditions and getting a full assessment of what the options are available, what's the local infrastructure like, connecting to this office space hopefully at the stage of when you're maybe selecting your new site, but even if you've already selected it, really understanding what's actually available at the site should be the very first step in this new location assessment. After you've looked at this piece of it, you'll want to understand some of the amenities available on site as well. And so you'll see in many buildings now, there's real-time transit screens that are available that are telling folks when exactly a bus might be arrived, what the nearby options are in a dynamic fashion, understanding showers and locker availability, what type of bike storage there is, again, if there's a bike fix-it station, and even some of those nearby lifestyle amenities can be important to people's daily commutes. We know most folks don't always just drive straight from home to work, for example. They'll might need to make other stops along the way, grocery stores or something that's typical. Gyms, and in fact, if you're in a building that doesn't have showers or lockers, some businesses will support purchasing gym memberships, just so folks who want to bike and walk can actually use shower facilities at gyms, understanding what the lunch options are, and if it's possible to live nearby your new location, what the nearby residential options are, and really thinking critically about the distance to those amenities. If we typically look at a reasonable walking distance with supportive infrastructure being a half mile down to a quarter mile, typically for what most folks are going to walk to. And then probably one of the most important things that you have likely already had many discussions with your employees and with staff who are working on your office relocation is the topic of parking. And of course, understanding what type of parking is available. Is it on-site? Is it off-site? The number of parking spots that are available, how that's going to be charged, whether the fees vary by the hours, what types of passes are available, knowing whether there's carpool or van pool parking that's preferential, and van pools we'll talk about a little bit later, but if you are unfamiliar with a van pool, it's basically a very large carpool in a 15-passenger van. And increasingly electric vehicle charging spaces are important. And for many businesses, there's a practice of bundling parking with your lease, and the number of parking spaces is something that we typically find businesses are reluctant to under-purchase, so to speak, but we also know that the available amount of parking and the cost of parking greatly determines folks' use of other transportation options. So one strategy that we do like to promote at Commuter Choice Maryland that's a benefit to both employers and employees is something called Parking Cash App. It's also sometimes called cash and loan parking. And when you're at the stage of negotiating for how much parking you might want to have at your new site, this is the time when you would employ this strategy. What it is basically the employer giving the employees a choice to either have a parking space at work or accept a cash payment to give up that parking space. So if you were going to pay for parking passes, say $100 per employee a month, maybe you would give the employee $50, for example, to support their alternative ways of commuting, or just $50 to give up their parking space, and then the employer would get to save that other $50 back. And so the benefits of this is you can really understand, well, how much parking do we need when we're offering the option of parking cash out? You can hopefully reduce the need for the amount of parking you're purchasing, and of course, depending on the arrangement, any maintenance costs associated with that parking. If you are constructing an office space, hopefully this helps you also to right size what you're constructing. So with the next slide, we have another poll question. Again, this is not, all of the amenities on the slide are not necessarily it's not a complete list, so to speak, but it's a cherry-picked list. But we're kind of interested in some of the strategies that we've discussed so far. What kind of amenities you think are most important and valued by your employees, or potentially most valued by your employees? Great. I love to see those parking cash outs because we love to promote that, as well as carpool and vanpool. A lot of interest also in showers and lockers. Okay. Okay, great. All right. Fabulous. Okay. We're going to talk now a little bit about commuter benefits, which we've already referenced in this presentation. And this is something that you may already have at your company, but if you don't, while you're in the process of relocating and trying to smooth the transition for your employees in their new location, this is something that we also promote extensively with Commuter Choice Maryland and help businesses who are interested in implementing this. So commuter benefits are transportation fringe benefits that are regulated in the tax code. And as of January 2019, federal law allows employers to offer employees up to $265 per month as a pre-tax deduction or a tax-free subsidy for use on transit, van pools, or parking. And there's many reasons that you would want to offer commuter benefits. Including reduced bottom line costs, increased quality of work and productivity, recruitment and retention, improved morale and work-life balance, reducing that parking demand, making your organization a more desirable place to work, helping you to meet sustainability goals, and for the tax incentives that are available. And there's a few different ways to do this. So we'll go through basically three options for doing so. The first one would be what we call the employer-supported option. And with this option, employers support their employees commuting by providing a monthly subsidy of up to $265 per month in tax-free benefits. As a result, this would probably allow your employee to ride transit or van pool all month for low or no cost. There was a change to this tax law effective January 2018, and that employers can no longer deduct expenses tied to providing transit benefits. However, there is still a tax benefit to the employer in that you continue to not have to pay payroll taxes on employer-provided benefits. The second way of doing this is called the employee pre-tax option. And so in this option, the employee purchases a transit pass or van pool fare using a pre-tax salary deduction. And so the employee's federal, state, and FICA taxes are reduced because they have lower taxable wages. They can ride transit for less than they would have otherwise, having saved on the taxes, and the employer also will save on payroll taxes. And the third option is doing this in combination. So you may decide that you want to offer $50 or $100 per month for your commuter benefit, but you will allow the employee to take the remaining portion of their transit or van pool costs as a pre-tax amount. So if their total monthly transit pass was $150 and you offered $50, you could provide a $50 subsidy, and they could take the remaining $100 as a pre-tax benefit. And again, the Maryland Commuter Tax Credit is something that we at Commuter Choice Maryland promote heavily and also provide assistance to employers wishing to access this tax credit. The state tax credit, and employers can claim up to 50% of eligible costs for providing commuter benefits up to a maximum of $100 per participating employee per month, can be taken against state personal income tax, corporate income tax, or insurance premium tax. Another strategy that we like to promote as part of the suite of alternative commute options is looking at telework and alternative work schedules. So you may be, necessities of your business or for other reasons locating in a place that transit isn't accessible, or maybe it's just not going to work for all of your employees given where they're coming from. And so telework and alternative work schedules are also a very important part of our whole toolbox of strategies that we use to help employers and employees manage their commutes. So telework is a great solution. These days, we can say costs little to nothing. Most employees, if they're in an office job, may have, laptops already, and there's not sort of the same IT infrastructure that's associated with needing to telework. This helps us by reducing rush hour traffic, reducing commute time. Employees are more productive, and we have lots of information and actually have a separate telework toolkit that we can provide you with on how telework can actually increase productivity for your employees based on a wide range of studies. So if that's useful to you, please do let us know. There's also working alternative schedules. So even if you shift the commute times or your employee work hours just a little bit, say 7 to 3 p.m. instead of 9 to 5, or compressing the work week, working 40 hours a week, but working Monday through Thursday instead of Monday through Friday. All of those strategies both help employers and employees manage issues related to the commute and also help us increase employee satisfaction and quality of life in Maryland. There's lots employers can also do to help encourage and support employees who want to bike and walk to work, whether that's providing assistance with new bike or shoe purchases, a subsidy for a bike lock purchase or bike insurance. Businesses may also have a bike loaner program for short trips during the day, making sure that you provide in a location that provides bike parking, bike maintenance, and showers and lockers on site, very important. And finally, there's this topic of incentives. So some employers have provided actually incentives to help their employees shift their travel options and support them being able to make the transition. This is different than providing a commuter benefit. This may be that you will provide a Starbucks card to everyone who tries a new way of getting to work other than driving alone over a certain period or something like that. And actually, the state of Maryland has worked with some of our other partners to create an app where that's going to be the app you can download today. The incentives are going to be forthcoming, but the state will be providing incentives to folks who are shifting their trips from drive-alone behavior via this Incent Trip app. You can check back with us throughout the fall for more information on that as it fully launches. But that's something that will be available to everyone across the state of Maryland and at no cost to employers or anyone who would like to participate. There's also other things employers can do, including providing corporate car sharing accounts, getting corporate accounts with other providers, for example, Uber and Lyft. I mentioned the Guaranteed Ride Home program at the top of the call, but there are companies including Uber and Lyft that have worked with individual employers to set up their own Guaranteed Ride Home specific to that employer program. There's also things like the Capital Bike Share corporate membership that you can provide if you're in the Washington, D.C. region, that allows employers to purchase a discounted membership for their employees. We also have a lot of information on that. The last point I'll mention is this idea of gamification has been used by many employers and many programs where you can actually make it a competition across your employees to see who's transitioning or who's taking these commutes other than driving alone, providing them little rewards, Starbucks cards, movie tickets, what have you, and making a competition between departments. There's lots of fun ways you can make this more fun for folks to get on board with trying new ways of getting to work. And then also very important, van pool and carpool. There are a lot of different options for setting up a van pool and carpool. Again, a van pool is just a very, very large carpool. There's a number of companies across the state that will lease vans to van pool groups. And we have a list of those as well as a step-by-step guide for employers and commuters on accessing van pools that's available on our website in this beautiful van pool toolkit that you see displayed on the slide. And so that takes you through all of the considerations in either making van pool information available to your employees or working directly with one of the state's many van pool providers to look at your options in supporting a van pool option. Supporting a carpool option could be as easy as looking at your own employee database and your new locations, thinking of trying to help match the folks up with potential carpool and van pool partners, and whether you're doing that proactively and letting people know that information, asking them if they're interested in going through the process and looking at carpool as a potential solution for their commuting needs, making sure you have preferential van pool and carpool parking. All of those things are an important part of supporting ride sharing. And before we leave this section, we're about to move on to the last section. Just wanted to say that you may be thinking, well, carpool won't work for most of my employees because they have a school drop-off, or we can't telework because of the nature of our business. I think the point of having all these options is we know that all of these options won't work for every company. All of these options won't work for every employee. But we hope that there is an option. Again, telework, alternative commute, compressed work, all of those things are still a part of this big picture of looking at how we help folks manage their commute, and even if we can help those who can make the transition and use some of these resources available, do that, we're helping to improve commutes for everyone throughout the state of Maryland. So the last, next section is executing the plan. So once you've got an understanding of what your employees' current commutes are, what their needs are, and what their concerns are at the new work site, what's available at the new work site, and what strategies you want to bring in, among all of those things we just talked about, commuter benefits. Once you've created a plan for your work site, then you really have to let people know that what's available. And so you can do that by spreading the word. We do host transportation fairs and help businesses with that at Commuter Choice Maryland. You can see an example of our beautiful setup. We also have many little giveaways we bring around. We can help you set up a relocation meeting to explain the new options, tour the site, and make sure that you're advertising all of the new options available, new benefits that you're going to be providing, or even your existing benefits through emails, your lobby screen, brochures, posters, making sure you're doing everything you can do to spread the word so that folks do have a sense of security and knowing that what their options are going to be at the new work site. And as always, we here at Commuter Choice Maryland are always here to help. There's also a number of rideshare coordinators throughout the state of Maryland who are also available to help you. So for those who are in the Baltimore regions and the Washington region, there are many local travel demand management programs that work with employers directly to help manage these concerns. Commuter Choice Maryland covers the entire state. You can go onto our website if you'd like to get a local contact and find one there. You can also just reach out anytime directly to us here at Commuter Choice Maryland. We can go through this entire process that we've talked about throughout this webinar with you, one-on-one individually, and help you every step of the way with your relocation. And so with that, we're going to conclude the presentation part of this webinar and open it up for Q&A.
Thank you, Shana. We do have a couple of questions that have come through. Relocating is a stressful time. When do you recommend that businesses should start the planning process?
For the planning process for new commutes, I think ideally it should start when you are assessing your locations that are available. Now, if you're past that point and you've selected a new process, I think, a new location, then I think as soon as you've selected that new location, folks are going to become aware of it. As we all know, whether it's, formally announced or not yet, word does quickly get around. So I would say starting this process of being proactive, of communicating to folks that, you're looking at their commuting concerns and you're coming up with strategies and information that's going to help them manage that transition. Basically, the sooner the better.
Shana, how important is it to survey employees, and when should businesses do that? Should it be before the move or after they've settled into a new location?
I definitely think it's important to do it before the move because really, we know that people do make decisions about whether they're going to take a new job or stay at a new job in a large part based on commute. The percentage of people that change jobs because of their commute is escaping me now, but it's actually pretty significant percentage. And so I think understanding what people are doing today before you move, and then how they think that their commute's going to change, what concerns they have about that, is really important to do before you move, so that by the time you're at the new location, you can help them. They already have a plan for how they're going to get there. They're not, making an assumption about what their options are going to be, or worrying or concerned, or maybe even worst case scenario, looking for a new job because they don't know how to manage their new commute. Now, if you're past that point, you're at the new location, we hopefully you might be doing an employee survey on a periodic basis to really understand how your employees' transportation commutes are going, and what benefits that they find valuable. So I would say there's no wrong time to do one, but if you are interested in doing this and really getting a complete understanding on an ongoing basis, we generally recommend you try to do an employee commute survey on an annual basis.
Shana, who typically goes on a site visit to determine accessibility? We have some folks on the line who are interested in, getting your take on who they should include on the site visit.
Well, that's a really good question. And, typically, and I think to some extent it would depend on the individual company and the type of company, but the team who is really have been leading the relocation process would be those who would go on the site visit. Now, if you feel that there's, an employee who's champion, maybe they're, really somebody who's championing or concerned about bike commuting, for example, I think it is beneficial to also identify, if there's individuals who have a special interest in this topic or even special concerns, maybe they've already expressed them to you. And certainly, you can invite them along in the process and see, they may, if they're, for example, a regular bike commuter, they might, see, different advantages or disadvantages from a different perspective than somebody who might not regularly be using that mode. So the answer to the question is really just whomever is leading their relocation process, a team, should be part of what their work is about. If you have people who are in HR, who are involved with commuter benefits, it doesn't hurt to loop them in. And then if you have any other champions on your staff for any of these options, you can also look at potentially including them.
Shana, what type of business setting have you seen parking cash out being implemented? There's some folks on the line who have their offices located in a suburban setting where parking is free and abundant. They just wanted to get your take on that.
Right. So that's a very good question. And it does come into play in places where you're paying, the parking is typically leased and paid. Now, when you say free parking is free and abundant, if it's something that you're purchasing through your lease separately, like maybe if there's a lot of parking, but it's not, it's something that you're still paying for. And what, maybe you can think about it broadly, like, well, somebody's paying for this parking. We know somebody's always paying for the parking, but if it's in your lease and you're buying it separately, that is when you can employ parking cash out. If it's just, something that's there that is not part of your lease negotiations, unfortunately, parking cash out doesn't work in that situation.
Thanks, Shana. That's all the questions that we have for today. On behalf of the Maryland Department of Transportation, we'd like to thank everybody for their time and participation in this webinar. This webinar has been recorded and will be available on our website, so feel free to check it out there if you want to rewatch it and share with your friends. Thank you, everybody.
Yep, thanks.